Last time I checked out Sternglas, I was left with a really good impression. I reviewed another automatic of theirs, the Naos, which looked great, had good build quality and definitely justified its retail price. The brand recently got back in touch, offering to loan me their latest automatic release, which is this, the Swiss-made Kanton. In several ways, this watch has equally impressed me. However, one factor has pretty much made those irrelevant. So let's begin by running through the size and specs to give you an idea of what this feels like. Your Kanton will arrive in this lovely packaging featuring a black wooden box. This opens to reveal the watch within, and it's a nice first impression. Sternglas continue their great sizing. This case coming in at a smidgen under 39mm in diameter, the lug-to-lug at 44.6 and the depth at 12.7mm. That includes the domed crystal. Overall then, this is quite a compact watch. And it's similar in size to the previous watch I reviewed, albeit this Kanton does have a slightly longer lug-to-lug size. As such, this is still going to suit small to average wrists really well, though it might be a tad more wearable for those with larger wrists. I think this is a great size that doesn't dominate your wrist and gives a more classic look than some of the other huge watches offered by other brands. This piece is constructed of 316L stainless steel, which feels of good quality. The case is polished throughout, albeit feels slightly plain. While this has the potential to be a really good looking case, I'd like to see them be a little more experimental and try out some different finishes on certain areas. The crown is equally smooth without any embossing, but functions very well indeed. However, it does protrude more from the case compared to that on its predecessor. The rear of the case is secured in place by 6 screws, providing a mere 30 meters of water resistance, which is okay for this style of watch, and it's kind of expected, but it's definitely nothing special. Essentially, the watch is just splash resistant. Pleasingly though, covering the dial is a piece of double-domed sapphire crystal with an anti-reflective coating. As I recently explained in my beginner's glass guide, this is my favourite type of watch crystal. It will keep this watch looking exquisite for a long time, and in this situation, I think that it suits the style of the watch. The anti-reflective coating does a particularly great job of maintaining the legibility of the dial in indirect light too. Included in the package is this plush German-made leather strap. This one is a lovely colour and texture with stitching that suits this watch well. It does seem slightly better quality than that included with the previous Sternglas watch that I reviewed. Though given my short loan time with this one, I can't really comment on the durability of it long term. My first impressions are that it does feel a little firmer than the other one as well. Something to note is that this strap is rather long. If you have a 7-inch wrist or larger, this is fine, but for smaller wrists like mine, at 6¼ inches, I'm stuck on the very last hole. And that leaves arguably the two most important parts of this watch, the looks and the movement. You'll notice some similarities between this review and the linear review that I did previously, because these micro brands often lack in terms of brand prestige and heritage, so often rely on other factors to give their watches more of a unique selling point. Sternglas watches tend to have that German Bauhaus look, and this is no exception. You have a rather small chapter ring sitting around the edge of this curved dial. Outside of the applied lume pips at every 90 degrees, everything else is simply printed onto the dial. While I understand that they're going for that clean and simple look, personally, I would like to have seen a little more craftsmanship here. It's also to be noted that when it comes to legibility or readability, they have definitely gone for form over function. The hour markers with their accompanying minute references are very small, making them tricky, if not impossible to read at a glance. I think these are there for visual interest more than for functional usage, if I'm honest. The main portion of the dial has a silver sheen to it, which looks okay, but I don't think it's quite to my taste. The date window is unusual in the sense that it doesn't replace the 6 o'clock hour marker, but instead is situated directly above it. The date wheel is white, which matches the light tone of the dial rather well, so I think that's a good choice. But I do wonder how this watch would look without the date function. I think potentially it might look more attractive. The handset is pretty basic and plain, just black and straight. I think it suits the style of this piece, and it also features slim sections of lume on it. I'll pop a quick lume shot in here so you can see what performance to expect. With a dress watch like this, I guess it's nice to even have some in the first place, albeit it's not the strongest out there. As a whole, I think the watch looks pleasant, but In my opinion, the Naos I previously reviewed has that look that I definitely prefer. That design looks a little bit more unique, it's certainly more to my taste. This Kanton just looks a bit meh to me. It looks fine, but it certainly doesn't strike me as a great looking watch. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. One of the best features of this Kanton is the STP 111 automatic movement contained within. This is essentially a cloned, improved version of the popular ETA 2824 and is seen in many watches around this price range or even higher. This is a notable improvement on the Miyota automatic used in the Sternglas I previously looked at. This caliber moves the second hand along at 28,800 beats per hour, which works out at 8 per second. I have to say the finishing on this is exemplary, with the custom Sternglas engraved rotor being a nice touch. You can expect this to be accurate within about 15 seconds per day, usually closer to half of that with a decent 44-hour power reserve. This same movement is present on a watch I reviewed a while back from the 5th, which I'll bring up in a second. So I think this is a nice watch, but does it live up to the staggering retail price of £722 at the time of recording this video? For me, when I put it up to that Naos Automatic, I really can't justify the huge price difference between the two. I was a bit taken aback at first when I saw how much they were asking for this watch. £700 is a lot of money to spend on anything, especially a watch. So overall, I was expecting something that would feel truly premium. Unfortunately for me, I don't think that the aesthetic or the finishing are quite there. I like how they're pushing the boat out with this and experimenting with new stuff, but for me, it feels more like a watch that's worth about half that retail cost. Unlike with other heritage brands, this will also lose a large portion of its value if you ever decided to resell it. So I think you'd really have to love it to part with that much cash, and unfortunately, I don't love it. I understand that it's Swiss made and contains that great movement, however, I still think that the retail price is unreasonable for a brand that most people likely haven't heard of. And I've also got to think about this in relation to some other products that I've reviewed before. If you're looking for a Swiss made micro brand dress watch with this movement inside, I'd go for the Blue Auto from the 5th that I reviewed last year. In my opinion, that piece has at least comparable, if not better finishing, and looks more expensive despite being less than half the cost of this Kanton. Admittedly, you do get quite a different look, but to me it just feels like a better way of spending your money. And then you've got other options such as the famous Junghans Max Bill automatic models that can be had for a very similar price, which will retain their value much better over time than this one. I'm positive that this would be a much more tempting proposition if this were priced below £400. Imagine if this were 299 quid, boom, they'd be onto a winner. Maybe that isn't possible for a smaller brand like Sternglas, but at the moment at this price point, I can't really recommend it, to be honest. I like Sternglas as a brand, I like a lot of their designs and what they're doing, but I have to admit I'm not one to particularly value the Swiss-made label so much, especially when it ups the retail price significantly. So in that case, if you're looking at this Sternglas brand, personally I'd just opt for the Naos. It's much less money and it feels like you're not getting much less watch.